So thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I love doing CRF events. And I said last night at dinner, it's just so nice because we can combine the research with the practice and have a really good discussion of what we see happening in the world, things going on, and how they impact our business, they impact our people, and they impact our own careers. We all have careers in the room. So I want to apply this as much to you and to us as we do to the people that work for us. And so, but I'm going to start with a little exercise to get us moving. First thing in the morning, you've just had a coffee. Now we're going to practice moving our legs. Okay, and I have some questions that I'm going to ask you. If it applies to you, you will stand up, look around, acknowledge, and then you will sit back down. Okay, so let's just practice standing up. But if I say, are you alive? Okay, standing up. Okay, that worked. Okay, we got it. All right, easy. That was easy. Okay, now online people can click on the thumbs up function so we know who you are. If you're online, click thumbs up if you are alive, and then you can kind of cast your vote there as well. All right, you may sit back down. Okay, so we're just going to do a little bit of a standing poll. I was thinking of some questions actually last night after our conversation, just to get a feel for what's happening with us and with our people. So stand up if you're working longer hours than you were pre-COVID. More hours per week. You're working more hours per week in general. Okay, you may sit back down. Stand up if you're working fewer hours. Okay, only one. All right, all right. Okay, you can sit back down. Stand up if you know somebody who has taken burnout leave this year. Okay. All right, you can sit back down. Stand up if you feel overworked at the moment. Now, this is quite a common experience, right? This is quite a common experience. Okay, you can sit back down. Stand up if you have ever compared your career to someone else on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn. Right? We've all done it. You look at someone and you're like, oh, you know, that person from high school. Okay, you can sit back down. All right, we've all done that. We've all done that, right? All right, stand up if you feel like your organization has a clear sense of purpose. And stay standing if you feel really connected to that sense of purpose. It's good, especially because we've got. Now, stand up if you feel through your role, you have a deep sense of purpose for your role. Okay. All right, you can sit back down. Now, stand up, last one, if you think that purpose is just a buzzword. It's a buzzword. Or people are like, I'm not outing myself on that one. Especially not after she's talking about purpose. Okay. So, that's always just to get a good sense of some of the dynamics happening that are shaping purpose and shaping how we get a sense of meaning, why we get up in the morning and go to work. And so we're going to talk about this. So purpose isn't just, could be seen as a buzzword. We've had 60% growth of the searches on purpose in the last 10 years on Google. All right. And this is for several reasons. It started off with I don't like to call them the millennials, right? They hate that, right? This whole generation thing. But the younger generations started to ask and started to push, be connected into more having social impact, right? So it started with the younger generation of employees really going, I want to work for an organization that has a sense of purpose, that has a sense of impact beyond just making profit. Okay, and the interesting thing about this generation is that they're increasingly mobile, especially now, especially during COVID times when we can work from wherever, or at least in some organizations. But they're also very socially connected, right? So they can see, just like we do, look at our careers on LinkedIn, they can see each other, see what everyone's doing. And that ignites a deep sense of social comparison like we've never seen before. And I'll talk a little bit about how that shapes purpose. Now, this generation also is a bit of a paradox because we look at, we want to work for organizations that have a deep sense of purpose. Yet we are facing also the plethora of jobs we call, of influencers, social media jobs, right? They're on social media where we have filters, Instagram, life looking positive, life looking perfect. So on one side, we want social purpose. On the other side, we've got this social comparison and filtered life and influencers earning more money than most of us could earn in a lifetime of career. So this is shaping the way we think about our jobs, the way we think about purpose and impact. Okay, so now this generation has, yes?
This mobile piece,
is it linked to what?
But are they willing to relocate to other locations?
Willing to relocate to other locations, yes, but also other organizations, yes. So that sense of I can move if I'm not happy is on the rise, right? And we see it now, and I'll talk about that in a second. We see it now. It was kind of the younger generations, and now we see the highest rate of turnover in the last month was actually 35 to 45 years old, right? So it's actually mid-career people going, I've had enough of this, right? And so I'll talk about that. So we're seeing the rise then on the other side of corporates wanting to have that social impact, right? So we look at the 2018 roundtable, the CEO roundtable in the United States, saying organizations should exist not just to make profit, but to have an impact for all of their stakeholders. So we have a rise of more stakeholder capitalism as opposed to just shareholder capitalism. And right now at the COP26, CEOs and investors are discussing sustainability. How do we have more impact? How do we leave less harm as an organization? So we see that on the other side. But all of this is interesting because it's a paradox. And so many more people now are saying, why do I work? What is this all for? Right? We are all on a collective hamster wheel, right? If you picture the hamster wheel running, running, running. And a lot of people are saying, I want off of that hamster wheel for now. Doesn't mean forever, but for now, it has to stop. I can't do it anymore. And I call that, we're kind of on a collective existential crisis, right? Where we're saying, why this? Why me? Why now? What am I doing? And what is this all for? Working hours have increased. Now in this room, only 50% of us are working more. That's not what the studies show. So the studies are showing that people are working on average 2 hours more per day. So if you think at the start of COVID, it was, oh, I have all this extra time on my hands. I have all this extra time on my hands. I'm going to take up my guitar again. I'm going to start running. I'm going to cook. I'm going to spend more time with my kids. All of a sudden, that time got filled with work. And work. And now we're working all around the clock. There's no boundaries. When do I shut off? How do I shut off? The commute used to help me shut off. And so we're finding that working hours are on the rise. And people are spending more time on social media and less time, physically with others. So social media influences, as we know, in a way where we do more social comparison. We only see the good side of other people's lives. Right. And we're having kind of very high level interactions online as opposed to having more connections, and especially at work. So we used to go to work and have social connections, right? Even if those were what you call weak ties, just having a chat with the coffee person, having a chat with someone down the hall saying hi, those are all gone. And it's filled with just task, just doing the job we were hired to do. And now we realize, wait, it wasn't really about the job I was hired to do, was it? It was about the organization I worked for, the people I worked with, the leader I worked for. That's all gone. And now I'm just doing my job and I'm not sure I like it anymore, right? When it's all I have, is it enough? What is enough? And so this is what people are asking. Also, I have a picture here of Jeff Bezos's giant, interestingly shaped rocket. Sorry. Because this is showing us kind of, again, we see other people out there. We see, I've been working 15 years to save up and I'm buying a house, right? To save up for something. But then we see on the other hand, extreme wealth that seems, and it's easier, the gap was always there, but it wasn't as easy to access, to see. in front of us, where we go, wait, the rich are getting richer. And what are they doing? And they're doing things like extravagant things like shooting themselves and their friends up into space. Well, I'm working day in and day out, right? I'm exhausted. And so that comparison, and down here I have China's lipstick brother. So this is the influencer culture, where you see some people can live stream themselves putting on lipstick and earn $1 million a day doing so, right? But, we laugh because we think this is ridiculous. Another one that, my husband goes nuts about on a daily basis, and he's a senior executive in an engineering firm, is Supercar Blondie, for example, from does anybody know who Supercar, what does she do for a living? An Australian, she drives supercars and live streams it on YouTube, and her net worth is now $20 million, right? So these kinds of things are causing, and because we're spending more time on social media, we're seeing it, right? And we're going, okay, what am I doing with my life, right? And these are some of the trends that we see happening. So burnout, mental health issues are up 30% since in a year and a half. The biggest rise we've seen in burnout, depression, and anxiety ever in the workforce. 54% of employees generally feel overworked. 41% wants to quit their job. Whether they do or not is another one, is another thing. Now I have links to all these studies and we'll send you the slides, but 41% would leave if they could. That's a lot. That's a lot. We had that, I didn't make you stand to say whether you want to quit your job just in case, but it's real. 4.3 million Americans quit in just August alone, 3% of the workforce. It's the Great Resignation, really, like we've never seen before. So how do we keep people there, right? Or do we want to keep people there? Do we want to stay ourselves, right? So these are questions that are happening in what I call the collective existential crisis, right? What am I working for and why? Yep.
One question, do you have a breakout by country?
Breakout by country? I don't have this here, but I can get that, yeah. And so but it is now, if you'd say, in fact, interestingly, just a poll in this room, so we have a lot of Europeans in the room, is turnover happening at higher rates in your organization, right? Just raise your hand, right? And so absolutely, it is a global phenomena, probably triggered, the statistics are shocking in the United States, but we see it around the world. And it's starting to move. We were talking about Asia. It's starting even to move. We see it happening in Asia. And, I teach about mental health and burnout, and I had never been asked ever to do a talk in Asia on that topic. And I've done 4 in the last 6 weeks with, hundreds of people from certain employees, because it is burnout, mental health are really starting to really trickle through the organization. So other thing really important to note is that there is a growing disconnect between leaders and the people, right? So senior leaders, CEOs, the senior people in organizations, maybe some of us here, we're going, I don't think this is an issue. I feel a sense of purpose. I'm not burning out. But there's a disconnect between the lower levels of the organization and the senior levels of what's happening, where the lower level isn't telling the senior managers. And sometimes, so convincing your CEO that this is an issue can be difficult because they don't feel it. There's the disconnect. So 85% of executives in upper management agree they feel they can live their purpose, but 85% of frontline employees don't feel they have one at work. That's a huge disconnect. And so it's worth stopping in the organization and saying, wait a sec, how do we translate the purpose we have at senior levels, who they're bought in, they've set the purpose, they have the control. How do we translate that so the people on the front line can say, this is how I contribute to my organization's purpose. This is why I work, right? This is how my role matters, right? And I bet you if you went to the frontline employees in the organization and said, why does your role matter? It would be hard for them to answer that question. And that's the most important question you can answer when it comes to purpose. So because I only have 15 minutes and I've probably already gone over, just a few last things. But really, when it comes to working with purpose in an organization, it's so important to note, and increasingly more, especially with employee engagement and employee experience, is that it's not one size fits all. And often, even if your organization is working to change the world and you're working in data entry, you don't connect. You can see it's great that my organization is doing that, but what does that mean for me? How does my role fit in? And so we're having to customize purpose. We're having to have the conversation with our people where we go, how do you want to make a difference through your role? Putting it in there, putting the power in their hands to say, here's how my role makes a difference. Here's how I see it fitting in. Here's what inspires me, motivates me. Here's my values, and here's how I can live them. And that is subjective. Everyone has different ones. Okay. So just a few stats about purpose and work, because that's a whole nother topic. But organizations who have a higher sense of purpose, who do strive to make a difference to the world, have higher stock market performances. 20-year study found that companies focus on ethical orientations and stakeholders as opposed to shareholders, the whole community, had the highest growth in their stock price, higher than all the S&P 500 over the same period. This is a recent study over the last 20 years. So the data is increasingly showing that it matters and people are putting their money where their mouth is, but it has to be done right. And it has to trickle down to the people doing the work. Okay, it has to trickle to people doing the work. So this is an interview I did, and I'll send you the link. Bertrand Piccard is, has anybody heard of Bertrand Piccard? He flew around the world in a hot air balloon first. His father is Jacques Piccard, who had a submarine that went to the lowest depths of the ocean. Some of us learned in school. So he comes from a long line of explorers. And recently he built and flew a solar powered airplane all around the world. So I did, and that took 15 years of work for that one flight. And so I talked about how did you instill and keep a sense of purpose for yourself and your employees to actually care about something that was going to happen in so long, in so much of the future. So the interview is 30 minutes, but here's just one. You work with. People don't leave their jobs, they leave their leaders, right? They leave the teams, they leave environments that they feel they can no longer connect with. The last slide, it's like it's a hanging moment for it. There we go. Exactly. So in that's boom, drop the mic. So I find there's 3 pathways to purpose at work to think about. One, your purpose isn't at your work, right? You work to make money, to do something outside of work where you get your value, where you find your purpose. Not everybody who steps foot in the door in your organization is going to find a deep sense of purpose through the work they do, but they might have it outward. And you can have that conversation and say, what is the purpose you want to make? What is the impact? Where do you find value? Where do you find meaning? And how can we support you? And sometimes that's supporting them financially through their paycheck to do it elsewhere, right? That doesn't mean that, the work is bad, but it's about framing. We are supporting you to live, that's not the most ideal, but you can have all 3. So the second is through the work you do. Now, this is kind of the ultimate. This is when you connect to the organization's purpose and you feel like you live it, you work it on a daily basis. You believe in what the organization wants to achieve, the difference they want to make, and you feel the impact of what you do. You're connected into that purpose. Your values align to the values of the company, and you're doing that work. Right? You're working as a surgeon in a hospital. Right? For example, you are doing the work on behalf to advance the purpose of the organization. Not all employees can do that. And so you can find purpose within work. So this is the bulk of people aren't going to be connected to the overall organization's purpose, but they can find purpose at work through social connections, through belonging, through making a difference to customers, through making a difference to the people they work with. Okay, so this is where the bulk of employees are. All right, they find purpose at work, and that's why this is the bulk of employees that are leaving, because that purpose was taken away. It was never the job itself. It was the purpose that was built around the job, because I was working with people to do something meaningful for my team, and I don't see it anymore because I'm working alone at home on just my job. So you can have all three. You can have, I'm not saying you have one purpose in life, because it changes over time. It'll change through crucibles of your life. Often changes once people have children. It changes once you retire. So purpose evolves, and you can have different ones outside of work, inside of work, through your job and through the organization. So it's the leader's job to kind of help people have the conversation about, where am I finding purpose and what is it, right? And how do I live that at work? But it really starts with knowing, as leaders in organizations, of teams, where, when, and how you find a sense of purpose. It starts with you, and then you cascade that out to your people. People are 100% more likely to stay with a leader that has a sense of purpose, that projects it. Now, this purpose doesn't have to be connected to changing the world. It has to be something that excites you, that gives you passion, that gives you motivation, and then it infects others. So leaders have to find their own and cascade that out to others. And that's how you create an organizational purpose, right? It can start from the top, but unless people can live it, translate it, and feel it in their day-to-day work, it doesn't really mean anything.